Let me get the loud to not deafen everybody. Hopefully not too loud. All right, so as you said, I'm Justin Hensley. I work in Corpus Christi. So that's good sound? All right. Doing the wilderness rotation, and Farouk actually asked me to talk a little bit about the wilderness rotation specifically and other things you can do with wilderness medicine. And so really when we talk about wilderness medicine, it's sort of like when you're on a plane. When they ask for a doctor, they don't want an oncologist, they don't want an ophthalmologist or a dentist. They want an emergency doctor because we have the full breadth of everything. We know how to fix the things that are killing you, and often in most emergency departments we work in, we have to improvise anyway. So some places the regular ED is like wilderness medicine, but if you take it out in the woods, there's a bit more improvisation and it's more fun. So without further ado, the rotation I set up, so Auerbach and Luann wrote this nice book. It's called The Baby Auerbach because it's only 900 something pages instead of 3,000 pages. And so I have them even read a little less of it. I've got a pretty decent reading list for them. It helps because I can't go over everything. We give lectures on altitude and marine environment and envenomations, exotic illnesses, snake bites, spider bites. I'm not gonna go through all these lectures, don't worry. Then there's ones on survival, travel medicine, which is always interesting, tropical diseases, the really cool ones everybody likes to read about, animal attacks, and then things like extraction. But you can't spend a wilderness rotation in the classroom watching somebody go through PowerPoint, especially death by PowerPoint. So we've got to do some fun things. So the first year I did it, wow, that projects terribly. The first year I did it, there is, I was learning a lot, and so that's a ropes course. You can see the ropes in the background. You can't see any of the people. They're there, and I'm in the middle of them. And so we did a ropes course, and so hopefully, yeah, get them out there, get them to have some fun, learn how to do some knots and some ties, and how to get off of something high if you need to. And that was pretty educational, and we get to do some fun stuff there. Had to do some wilderness toxicology, so Sean Bush will be speaking at 2 o'clock. He's a good guy to listen to on this. But that's a really neat video that won't play on this computer. So other things we went out, there's some environmental exposures. Again, it's tough to see. In the bottom right hand corner of that picture is a barbed wire fence and a bunch of newly undocumented Americans in a field in Falfurrias. I was working with the Border Patrol, so we get a ton of exposure illness in South Texas from people who spent the last 3 weeks trying to cross a river and then hundreds of miles of South Texas scrub to come to a better place. And we talked to the Coast Guard because we get some interesting things from the Coast Guard, and you learn a lot about what some other people can and can't do. So the Border Patrol has the BORSTAR, which is the Border Patrol Search, Tactics, and Rescue, and they're ALS medics. But the Coast Guard, they are BLS medics. They've got a really expensive helicopter with a winch on it that can pick you up, but once you get there, they can take your temperature and put a blanket on you, and that's about it. And if you pack them tight, you can fit 2 in the little carry basket. Other things we make them learn, how to start a fire. Here I am scraping a magnesium flint to show how to make sparks. The picture didn't get the sparks, sorry. It's tough out there on the beach, really hard. I know y'all are really worried, but it's very windy, so it's hard to make fires this way. And so it actually took a while before we get the first fire, but we eventually got one. It actually took a cigar lighter and a plastic bottle that got washed up. It was so windy. And you can see the lean to the tents because of the wind. Yes, I get paid to camp on the beach with students. It's pretty awesome. I highly recommend it at some point. It looks easy, but it's actually pretty easy too. The next year, I was like, well, the ropes course is ropes, but people don't usually do ropes courses. And the high angle rescue is different if you're actually on the rocks. And so I teamed up with Outpost Wilderness Adventures via a very extensive Google search of people who climb at Enchanted Rock. There's 3 companies. And that's James Farber, and he's really cool. And he did some more pickoffs and things like that because he works with the actual ranger teams because people go out and climb at Enchanted Rock and get stuck out there. And so he's able to teach the students and me, because I didn't know it initially, some things about climbing and rescue. But we want to keep it more educational and still fun. And so we put people on high rocks and tell them to rappel down and don't fall. Because we're not really sure how the insurance works. Luckily we haven't figured out that if we need it, But just so you know that you're insured by your medical school, and let's just hope you don't break anything on the trip. I still went to the ropes course, you know, because it's still fun, but we did it after the climbing, and so it seemed a little less educational at that point, and so I actually took it out during the third year. Maybe it'll play this time. Nope, not there. So the other thing, I took him to the aquarium so we could learn about marine envenomations. In the process, became the medical consultant for the aquarium. There's lots of unpaid jobs that you show up, they're like, hey, why don't you teach all of our people how to deal with scuba injuries? And so now I'm the dive safety officer. A lot of us just showing up. But it's really neat. They've got sharks and they actually get some injuries. Most of the stuff they get is coral cuts, people brushing against the coral, the hard corals that are in the tanks. But just stuff you wouldn't even think about, you know, in an aquarium. They need to know. They've got alligators. They've got a African serval that can have a pretty nasty bite and has bit some people's hands. So it's really neat. Park rangers at Padre Island National Seashore. We did some low angle extraction techniques. For those of you who don't know Padre Island National Seashore, the highest point above sea level is a whopping 20 feet, down from 21 feet because the path is kind of beating the sand down about a foot. So you don't really do any high angle stuff, but we do some Stokes baskets and things like that. And so teaching the students how to get people out of stuff is a large part of wilderness medicine, right? Spend a day on orienteering so that they can learn that. And this is the third year rotation, or the most recent rotation, the third year of it. The one on the left that is the epitome of wilderness medicine. He's out there in his scrubs, in a folding chair at the park. And on the right, we added to the climbing. We made it from a one-day rotation to a two-day climbing expedition, and we go to Reimer's Ranch now as well to climb. So you can get some limestone climbing and some slate rock climbing. While we were there, in the middle of the picture, the yellow-legged thing is a Texas giant centipede. It's a Scolopendra heros, and it is about 5 inches long, and they lay pretty nasty bites. I give them a lecture on that too, but it was neat to see that thing in the wild and tell them not to touch it. Some nighttime caving. It makes orienteering a little tougher if you can't use your compass inside the rock, right? And so we add some fun to it by making them climb through there. For the record, if you've been to Enchanted Rock, that cave, it's the same lightness day and night, but at nighttime there's about 17 billion daddy longlegs crawling around. So it makes a nice carpet for you to squish through. Every time you put your hand down, you have to smear them off after it. This year, finally, though, this most recent year, this was October of last year, they finally got the fire started without having to resort to a lighter. They did use a pizza box that had washed up on the beach, but we got it started, so it was a little less windy. Another added part of the rotation was doing a mock mass casualty training with the Padre Island guys. And we think mass casualty, you often think about plane crashes and things like that, but for the park rangers at Padre Island, there's all 4 of them working at any given time. If 2 cars full of 4 people hit each other and they're all injured, that's a mass casualty for them. That's way more resources than they have available. And so we just kind of made a mock one. We had the birding van full of 15 passengers roll over. They wouldn't actually let me roll their van over, unfortunately. But so we did that, and people in the street and things like that. Going back to the aquarium, actually added the residents to this. So we spent a whole day of conference at the aquarium in October. It was pretty sweet. They said that was more students than they'd ever had there. And then we added kayaking orienteering as well, because there's nothing like having a 30-knot wind push your kayak way out in the Laguna Madre and then trying to get them back to you. And one of the more fun things was we did a search and rescue course, and I did some nighttime GPS training and things like that. And the most important part about nighttime training is teaching people how to put their headlights on so they don't shine them in other people's eyes. Always aim them down, so you can lean your head back if you need to, but that way you're talking to people is right in their face. Future things, that's me and Evan Kane, one of my third-year residents at Guadalupe Peak last month, actually. So while I was out there, I met the Guadalupe Peak Park Rangers. I do not yet have an unpaid job with them, but I've gotten some emails, and so I'm sure I will. That's at Big Bend in my vehicle, and I do teach for the Terlingua Fire and EMS guys who are at Big Bend. So what you learn in this is everybody has an experience with wilderness out there, and having a little bit of knowledge and being willing to go out and teach makes these people love you because they don't have anybody. I mean, they do woofer courses and things like that, and the medics certainly have classes, but they really need some good medical direction. And knowing how to teach them how to improvise is really useful. That's the South Rim. And then, but that's just my course. And so if you're doing wilderness medicine, if you do it, and yeah, you can be the expedition medic on any random thing you do with your friends. But what can you do with wilderness medicine training? The WMS is the biggest, most evidence-based organization for wilderness medicine. They've got a fellowship of the Academy of Wilderness Medicine that I'm 7.5 hours shy of. That, yes, it's extra letters after your name, you know, FACP, FAWM, but it's a good networking thing because these guys, I mean, you get an email maybe once a week, they're like, hey, the trip to Nairobi needs a medic or a medical director, does anybody want to go? And as an emergency doctor, you can always like, hey, I'll trade off a couple shifts and go to Africa for a week or whatever. I will caution you, so there is this group, Wilderness Dash Medicine. They are perfectly fine. Their CME counts just the same as everybody else's CME. And I've done one of their courses as well. It's a little older, a little less evidence-based, but they do some fun stuff. Like they go to Fiji, they go to Lake Tahoe, they do some of these other diving trips. And then like the Knowles guys, you can work with them. They do some wilderness first responder courses. They do some advanced wilderness life support courses. And once you start showing up and they know that you're not a basic level trainee, they start asking you to teach the courses and things like that. Again, but they actually pay you for that, so that's nice. But really, why? I mean, the question is, what is this any different than just regular emergency medicine? Well, sometimes life just gets lucky, and you know, you go work somewhere and somebody gets bit by a shark, and you kind of need to know more than what you really get taught in an average emergency medicine residency on shark bite management and antibiotics, and especially in a resource poor country like Fiji, which is where this happened. I was working in Fiji. That's the room that he was in. It's a good name. Never want to be a picture taken there. But, you know, that's just stuff that you wouldn't even think about. So the next day a guy brought a stonefish in, and he brought it in because it had stung him on the hand, and he was having a significant stonefish envenomation syndrome of his right arm with paresthesias and pain. And so of course he pulled it out, and everybody started wanting to play with it, and I had to convince everybody not to touch the thing. But then I had to put my hand next to it for size. It's not touching it, it's just next to it there. But really, you know, and I gave this as a MAC course, so you don't have to often go into the wilderness to experience wilderness medicine. Sometimes the wilderness finds you. We had an unfortunate incident in 2007 where a young couple, he was a Google executive. We're driving from Portland back home to San Francisco and took a shortcut in November after Thanksgiving to the coast and got stuck in the snow, and she spent 9 days out there. He died on day 7, you know, and they were just driving home. And so the wilderness finds you, and the reason knowing just a little bit about it is good, because more people get injured and die on single-day trips than on multi-day trips, because on multi-day trips you plan, you bring food, you bring shelter. It's I'm just going on a day hike, and you fall down a ravine and you're out there. And so knowing a little bit of wilderness medicine is very useful for your career and helping everybody else in it. The last little slides, this is our brochure for the rotation that everybody's welcome to take. We've got some, or we had some earlier, I don't know if we, you know, at the residency fair. And then I've hit my 14 minutes and we're open for questions. Anybody have questions about anything in general? Wilderness medicine, the rotation, South Texas, whatever.
When do you offer the wilderness medicine?
So this year, October, so ours is a block schedule, it's not a month schedule, and we can work with certain rotations. You know, I know TCOM has a different block schedule than other schools by a couple of weeks, but it will be basically the middle of October to the middle of November time frame is this year. And the reason I can't do it more months in a row is because all the other outside people I have, like the Aquarium, I could go to the Aquarium every week. They don't mind. I'm one of their employees now. But the Border Patrol and the Pottery Island National Seashore guys, it's a little tougher to get them all in one place at one time, and so we have to kind of arrange all that. But the goal is to hopefully offer it in the springtime soon as well, to allow third-year students who are early in their third year to be able to go. Obviously, we don't want to do it in July because it's super hot in South Texas outside in July. So, any other questions? All right. Excellent. Well, thank you for entertaining me, and hopefully I got you a little bit of exposure to wilderness medicine. 15 minutes is a short period of time to try and go over the breadth of wilderness medicine, but I'm happy to entertain any questions outside of this as well. Thank you.